Happy Monday afternoon, everybody, and welcome into the Intergalactic Sports and Entertainment Network on this Monday afternoon, March 13th, 2023. It is another day and another episode of Press Row coming away from the Ison Studios here in San Diego, California. Yours truly, Callan McClurg, back with you here as we once again, folks, dive into more with what we have going on with our brand new program here, which once again, folks, is Press Row. We talk all things sports media, sports announcing, game operations, work with statistics, and a lot of other great things here on this program. We, again, are trying our best to come your way on a consistent afternoon basis here, Monday through Friday, when, again, my work schedule will allow me to do so. But again, everyone, we thank you so much for joining us here on this wonderful Monday afternoon here, fresh off the daylight savings time change on Monday afternoon, or on Sunday, I should say, here across Southern California. And hopefully your and yours is having a tremendous start to your Monday here today. Folks, I wanted to make one quick clarification here about where right now things are at for Intergalactic Sports. Right now, our Facebook page is actually down at this rate. So right now, we are streaming live via my personal timeline and also streaming live as well across our YouTube channel and also via the Intergalactic Sports and Entertainment Twitch account as well here today. So if you're looking for us on Facebook, we're not right now on Facebook. We're going to be doing this more so on Facebook, Instagram, or not on Instagram, but again, Facebook, Twitch, and also live via other platforms. Right now, we're working to get our Facebook page back up and running when we do have more time. Again, as right now, you probably have seen it right now, Ison is kind of broken off into separate, basically into mainly separate show pages right now. We're working on getting all those resolved again, as we've been away for a while. Again, I've been away for a while, but again, working myself back into the streaming / podcast game. But again, folks, here on Press Row, we talk all things involving sports media, sports announcing, sports broadcasting, and other great things here today. Again, courtesy again, folks, of two really great outlets again that we'll be name dropping a lot. That again is via our friends over at awfulannouncing.com and also over today mainly from our friends at Front Office Sports here today. But again, if you're joining us on Facebook, on Twitch, or also on YouTube, again, we invite your input. Again, any questions, comments, concerns, again, drop those in the live chat box. We'll do our absolute best to read your commentary as our program does roll on here this afternoon. And again, we thank you folks so much for joining us here today on this Monday afternoon. Hopefully we can get all of our bugs and kinks worked out as our day progresses here on this Monday. But again, if you have any questions, any comments, any concerns, or whatnot, or have anything you would like to have answered or addressed on the program, again, please feel free to drop those in the live chat box. But again, once more, everyone, we are not focused on on-field moves or any sort of that. This is mainly the sports media side, the sports broadcasting side, and things affecting the sports world away from the field and the courts of play here this afternoon. But again, drop those comments in the comment box if, in fact, you have any sort of comments you would like to have addressed or anything you'd like to read. We begin, folks, today on this Monday with our opening segment, Hot Off the Press. And that, of course, folks, is RSN Watch, basically about how, in fact, the latest deals are coming up, but also what, in fact, might occur if, in fact, the Bally Sports and the RSNs do, in fact, tank. We talked about this just last week here on the debut episode of Press Row, and courtesy of Front Office Sports on this Monday. And courtesy of their lead writer, Owen Pondexter, Owen writes that Major League Baseball has now found a short-term solution for a long-term problem. The league will reportedly stream games of roughly 6 Major League franchises for free following the expected bankruptcy of Diamond Sports, which currently owns and operates the 19 different Bally's regional sports networks, according to a article shared on Monday by the New York Post. MLB Chief Revenue Officer Noah Gardner told FOS just a week ago, if any of the RSNs are no longer able to produce local games, we will be in a better position or in a position to step in to produce and distribute those games with linear and direct-to-consumer options. The CRO did, in fact, tell FOS just last week. MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred has also suggested that MLB could broadcast its games on its MLB Network channel to provide another linear option, and also the MLB.TV service would be used for streaming games. That would allow MLB to stream games in each local market, which it has been unable to do under current local broadcast contracts with both Diamond and other outlets too. Which again, we've also folks talked about AT&T Sportsnet having some issues. We've heard about some other RSNs also having some big time concerns as well. Noah Gardner further says that if MLB takes over local distribution in a market or in any market, our goal would be to allow for both a linear option and direct-to-consumer streaming service, which would remove the blackout in that market, open and close quote. Diamond reportedly plans to use its coming bankruptcy filing to cut off the contracts with at least 4 major league clubs to whom it pays more in rights fees than it makes in cable subscriptions and ad revenue. And those 4 teams include the Reds, Guardians, Padres, and the Diamondbacks. Diamond would lose at least $20 million on its Padres contract this year if, in fact, they do hit bankruptcy this season. So again, folks, this, I believe, like I said last week, at least right now, baseball has some sort of a safety net in place if, in fact, that these RSNs tank. Now, folks, you probably heard me wondering aloud or saying last week about where, in fact, things stood, though, with both Bally Sports and even as well with AT&T Sportsnet right now, which also is having some of their own issues with the Pirates and the Rockies and the Astros, I believe. But now I'm a little more concerned now, or a little concerned, maybe more concerned now on this Monday, now that I've seen my hometown team being a part of what, in fact, may come out of this bankruptcy issue with Bally Sports, Diamond Sports, Sinclair, and along with Cleveland, the Reds, and the Diamondbacks, because now, at least from the San Diego perspective, this is a season where I really believe this is going to be a World Series or bust year for the Padres with Machado and Soto, Xander Bogaerts, and Tatis Jr. coming back. And you've had buzz in San Diego around your baseball team for the first time, I'd say, in 25 years since that 98 ball club went to the World Series. Yeah, we had buzz in 2015, but that team didn't pan out. We had optimism when the Padres got Fernando Tatis Jr. Then when they got Machado and Hosmer, and that it began to kind of turn the tide, though. But again, those teams underperformed. Then you bank off of the somewhat Cinderella season last year with this 79, 80 win ball club, taking out the Dragon, as it was labeled in the Dodgers, 111 wins in the DS last season. They ultimately fall short in the NLCS, where I don't think a lot of people had the Padres getting that deep in the postseason. But now re-signing Musgrove, re-signing Darvish, re-signing Machado to a long 11-year contract, forking out 11 years for Xander Bogaerts, when you kind of create, in a way, a bit of a logjam at the shortstop position. And all the other moves that have been made by this Padre front office. Now, though, comes the concern I have, because now what if, in fact, happens if Diamond reportedly uses this bankruptcy as bait to cut off the contracts for the Reds and the Guardians, but also the Padres and Diamondbacks, where if me and my family is not in a position to be able to watch the Padres, this would kind of suck because we don't have season seats. I go whenever my schedule allows me to have time to go to a game with some friends or my girlfriend or what have you. And now I'm a bit more nervous now, because does this mean we're forking out more money to use Apple TV to stream these games because of the Bally uncertainty? Is it the same for the Reds or the Guardians or the Diamondbacks or any other ball club who may in fact be in this predicament due to the nature of what we're seeing right now? Now, like I said, though, folks, last week, the only saving grace I would see coming out of these RSNs tanking, and I don't want to see this happen, but if it did come to that fruition, my only saving grace out of this whole thing is that baseball could finally be able to take a page out of the MLS on Apple TV deal playbook and finally waive the blackout rules. Because now I think if you do this, where if you're losing the RSNs, if you're losing Bally Sports, if you're losing AT&T Sportsnet, if you're losing these types of regional sports networks, not the Yes Network or Spectrum Sportsnet or NBC Sports Bay Area, California, Chicago, or any of those, but mainly with Bally or AT&T. One would hope, though, that if baseball really has to put these games on MLB.tv, there has to be some kind of concession for fans of these four teams to start with, because right now these four teams are the ones who are going to be losing fees from Diamond, Reds, Guardians, Padres, Diamondbacks. And again, you also heard me read though that if Diamond loses the Padres this season, they're losing $20 million of revenue, which does not further help this bankruptcy case. But then you also begin wondering though about fan bases again, like for example, my parents and myself, we have streaming platforms, but we also have cable, our cable subscription. You begin to wonder though about losing an audience because now you may have to fork out more and more money for a MLB.TV subscription. Now, I did it 1 year and 1 year only during 2020 because I really wanted to see Angel games on TV that weren't being shown because, as I said last week, you are in San Diego, like myself, as an example. Again, I use my hometown as an example a lot, but just in my predicament, you can't watch Angel baseball or Dodger games on local TV down here because you are in the, territorial exclusivity area of the San Diego Padres, where that doesn't affect me watching Ducks hockey or Kings hockey on Bally Sports West or San Diego, or watching the Lakers or Clippers because there's no other team that would conflict with that, contract of, oh, you have to only show this team because you're in this market or this or that, essentially. But folks, I don't know what to make about this, but now I think the red flag is being raised more and more kind of frantically because now you're sitting about almost 2 weeks away from opening day come March 16th. You'll be 2 weeks away from opening day. And now I think the concern factor moves the needle up a little bit more with my concern level that Bally is not going to be able to survive and that now Padre fans, Reds fans, Guardians fans, and Diamondback fans could now be scrambling to find out how they're going to be able to watch their team on television. Radio is one thing, folks, but TV is where it's at for me, at least. And believe me, I love Jesse Agler and Tony Gwynn Jr. on a KWFN 97.3. But there's something about watching baseball on television. I don't know if it's because that's where I fell in love with the game and wanted to become a broadcaster, watching the Padres on Channel 4 a long time ago, 20, 25 years ago, or it's just the fact of baseball in general on television. But folks, give me your thoughts here. If you are perhaps, like my man Big B, Brandon Herrera, who was up in the Bally Sports North television market, where again, in Brandon's case, like I said last week, though, too, I know that Bally Sports San Diego is mainly just for the Padres, but then you factor in adding in the Bally Sports SoCal club. So the Ducks and Clippers. Then I think about Brandon, folks, for example, him living in the greater Minneapolis metropolitan area. Now you're factoring in the Twins, you're factoring in Viking preseason football games, you're factoring in the Wild, you're factoring in the Wolves and Lynx and college, and maybe, like Big Ten games maybe, or certain college affiliations who may have a deal with Bally. Now you wonder about, the Wild not being able to be on local TV perhaps for the first round of the NHL postseason, or the Wolves not being on as the year progresses on, or for that matter, not being able to watch the Twins play on opening day this year, or the Lynx opening up their WNBA season. So while that these four teams have been named in this particular story from FOS, I now wonder about every other Bally affiliate out there, not just, Great Lakes or Ohio or San Diego or Arizona, those four markets or those four Bally Sports stations. But I wonder about all of them now, because now this just seems like we're almost at the inevitable that RSNs are going to be dead within the next couple of weeks, probably because of this lingering bankruptcy. Now, again, I don't know when that 30-day grace period concludes or ends, but it does. I think, at least from my perspective now, it mainly makes me a bit more concerned because now I'm wondering more about the cable bill that me and my parents pay on top of having the streaming platforms for Apple TV, because now it's going to have to be, now we have to almost essentially devote our attention that way rather than worrying about cable. But again, folks, if you're in a market right now that is probably perhaps being affected right now by the RSN issues with Bally Sports, can give us your thoughts. We'll again take that input from you folks here today on this episode here of Press Row. Wanted to again say what's up to my man Brandon Herrera, saying what's up. And he's also asking quickly about the Padres and Andre Salas, the 16-year-old catcher. Brandon, we were talking for a little bit on Saturday or Friday about this kid, and actually, I think that both Ben Higgins and Steve Woods on the Padres flagship station here had a very great point, though, that I know that Salas said that age is only a number. This is a 16-year-old kid, though, playing against major league talent, guys who are 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe 10, 15, many years older than he is. And for him to be able to hold his own so far in the spring, and this is just kind of off base real quick, is really astonishing. And, this kid, I think, has a lot of potential. But again, 16-year-old kid, international signing, number one catching prospect. Bright future, hopefully, but certainly it's pretty bombastic seeing a kid who's 16 going out there and playing against major league talent, though, so far in spring training at this stage and at this point in time. With that, folks, we'll segue over to the world of women's professional soccer as the NWSL has officially announced plans for their 13th club in 2024 with a returning franchise coming back to the limelight here. The Utah Royals are officially returning back to the National Women's Soccer League for the 2023 or 2024 season. It has been ruled the 2024 campaign. Per frontofficesports.com, the league, along with Smith Entertainment Group and Global Football Holdings, announced that that the team is coming back to play in 2024 as the league's 13th different team, 4 years after the club was acquired and moved to Kansas City to become the Kansas City Current. When the team did move, its MLS counterpart, Real Salt Lake, kept the rights of the team name and branding with the ability to bring the club back in either 2023 or 2024 for a predetermined fee between $2 and $5 million. David Blitzer, who's the co-founder and owner of Harris Blitzer Sports Entertainment and Smith Ownership Group, purchased RSL last year for nearly a reported $400 million. When asked, David Blitzer said it was a matter of when, not if, the NWSL would come back to the state of Utah. The Royals will return to America First Credit Union Field, which is shared with RSL. America First Credit Union was also announced as the Royals' new front jersey sponsor. Other investors in the club are 42 Football Group and 5 business insiders, including Jessica Gilman, Kraft Analytics Group CEO and co-founder of the MIT Sloan Sports Analytics Conference as well. Back in January, the Wall Street Journal reported that the league was in the late stages of discussions to also add teams in both San Francisco, California, and Boston, Massachusetts, with the former launching after 2024, with the entrance fees are expected to be roughly around $50 million for both of those two clubs coming sometime in 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, the impact of women's sports cannot be understated. And this is not me having 16 years of bias with women's sports and my longstanding, dying on a hill of that women's sports need to be the same pegging as men's sports, whether you out there agree with me or not. But certainly these past couple years, women's basketball, women's soccer, gymnastics, college softball, has really, I think, helped people, turn the narrative around and invest their time going to games, watching games on television, and just getting invested, whether it's a one-time ordeal or it is a full-blown thing of like, I am fully on board embracing women's sports. And I can say that firsthand, having covered the San Diego wave of the NWSL last season for San Diego Sports Domination, as I will be again for year 2 coming up in a couple of weeks on March 25th, and seeing the impact that club had on not just the San Diego sports landscape, but on our soccer community, which has been very vibrant for over 40 years, thanks in part to the San Diego Sockers, who've won 16 indoor championships, along with, the first incarnation of the women's soccer team with the San Diego Spirit back in the early 2000s, following the success of the 99 team in the World Cup, on top of the fact of having the San Diego Loyal, who has been doing tremendous work trying to get the soccer fan base up and running, and how the Sockers, the Loyal, and the Wave all in a way share getting the sport onto a level pegging, I would say, with the Padres. Because of the fan support, the Loyal had a sellout crowd on Saturday for their home game, their first home game. But mainly, though, folks, with the NWSL. Now, folks, yes, I know if there's been that dark side, there has been the allegations, there has been the 30 for 30, there has been the, investigations about what has transpired across the league with, coaches, front offices, the harassment, the abuse of players that has gone on recently in the league. Despite all that negative publicity, I cannot be more proud, though, folks, of how the NWSL, and I said this, I think, during a stream I did back 2 years ago, I think, when it was first announced about Angel City FC, or the NWSL putting a club in Los Angeles at then Bank of California Stadium, now BMO Stadium, and how it was the group that came in, though, but also the NWSL tapping into a very vibrant soccer community in Los Angeles County. Two very successful Major League Soccer clubs with the Galaxy and LAFC, the defending MLS Cup champs. 6 combined MLS Cups in that market between Carson and downtown LA. And how that community, whether it's the Galaxy or LAFC, how that community has embraced soccer for a long time. I think back, though I wasn't alive, though, but I think back about the LA Aztecs for a long time of the NASL. And then when they went indoors, and how the Lakers got involved with the LA Lasers playing indoors at the Forum back in the day, and how that is another community that's really embraced soccer. Then I think about San Diego, Sockers, Loyal, and now the Wave, and how the Wave last year really exploded in this market because of the growth of girls soccer here in San Diego. But as I also remember saying, though, I think on either Coast to Coast or here on Ison, is I remember writing one of my first, my own perspective thoughts in a story when the Wave were on a bye week, I think. And I thought a lot about when the Spirit first came to San Diego in the then WUSA, but how all of us collectively, whether we like soccer or not, I think that we all had overbearing pride. Now, I was only 5 when the ladies won the World Cup in '99. But I remember, though, how the country really, I think, firmly grasped and embraced the sport of soccer because we had won the World Cup. We were on top. We had just beat China in this, epically amazing penalty kick shootout. Brianna Scurry making that big save and Brandy Chastain scoring, taking off her shirt, big deal. But then I remember, though, how the craze was when the WUSA began, though. San Diego, San Jose, I think DC was involved, New York, and, all the big markets out there. But I think back, though, to how the San Diego team was. I think about Julie Foudy, San Diego native before she moved to Mission Viejo. Shannon McMillan, still doing wonderful things with the San Diego Loyal. The super sub of that team, though, she's also from San Diego, had a huge hand helping make the Carmel Del Mar Valley Sharks what they are as one of the premier, county-wide soccer clubs in San Diego. I think about Joy Fawcett playing here and Shannon Box battling her health problems to play for San Diego. But how the fans came out, though, and supported the team so much so that they actually had to expand Torero Stadium at USD because every game was sold out. Cox Communications and Channel 4 putting the product on television, and Cox owning a small portion of the club really helped, I think, advertise the product, though. But now, though, in this day and age, though, folks, and again, mainly just comparing San Diego more to anything else here, is I think about how the players help sell the product here to San Diego. Kalen Sheridan, top goaltender probably or goalkeeper in the entire league. Abby Dahlkemper, notable name in the with Team USA in international soccer. Alex Morgan, the biggest name you can have probably on your roster. Taylor Korniak, rising star. Naomi Gurma, rising star with the national team. But it's more about how the team on the field sells the product to the fan base. And I remember working that first game at Snapdragon Stadium, and how epic it was, though. 32,000 people, a brand new league record for attendance. And then how that first playoff game against Chicago was also a new playoff record. But how it seemed like, though, that with every match that the Wave played in San Diego, momentum kept building. And I remember their first Pride Night against Portland. It was an epic, late second half comeback, but it was standing room only at Torero Stadium. It only holds about 6,000 people. They were about 150 to 200 people beyond capacity for that game. I know it was Pride Night, but it was also a epic finish, though, of Taylor Korniak, gets them on the board, then ties the game in the waning minute of stoppage time for a 2-2 tie to keep at that time, their home unbeaten streak going in early June. Then now you're also factoring in that game with Angel City that also had the epicness of the first ever game at Snapdragon, but also had 32,000 people. Now I think about where the league is going now, because now you are going back to a market in Salt Lake City. Great MLS market, great club, Nick Raimondo all those years, couple of championships with RSL. But again, it's about how the fans embrace the MLS team, but how they also support the NWSL side. And I cannot wait to see how it works in, seeing Salt Lake City get their club back. But also, I'm more eager about the Bay Area because I think they've been looking for a soccer winner. I know that the Roots had a good year in USL. The Quakes have not been the best in MLS post their 2010 or 20, or like their 2010 or 2000, whatever, their last championship, basically. They've been, at the bottom part of the standing, sadly. But also that is also a very strong market for women's soccer. And I think if you have Brandy Chastain on board, which I believe she might be a part of that group, then, of course, you factor in Boston. I know the Revolution have been a very, consistent winner in MLS, though they haven't won a championship. But it's going to be, I think, great to see, though, how that this women's league continues to grow and grow and grow. And I think, feel really happy for the fan base, mainly in Salt Lake City, who has been, I think, probably dying to get their club back after, again, RSL had some problems. Finances probably weren't there. But now I think that based off of how it worked in San Diego and worked in Los Angeles, this, I think, begins a very good way. But what I want to see the NWSL do is I don't want them to follow the WNBA footprint from the early 2000s, where the league was going great, but then they, I think, expanded too quickly and franchises folded. The Portland Fire, the Orlando Miracle end up moving to Uncasville, Connecticut. I don't want to see a repeat of that, though I know that maybe more people now are finally invested in the product, though. They're turning it on more and more often. They're going to games. They're buying merchandise. They're really invested. I would just hate to see the NWSL kind of go back to old habits of a women's professional sports league and go the route of adding too many teams. And then after a year or so or a couple of years, the interest in the market dies down. The team doesn't have a lot of good success on the field or off the field. You don't want to see that happen again. You don't want to see repeats, and I know that my man Sean Pebbles is in the box. Sean is the PA voice of the Cavaliers. I would hate to kind of see like a Cleveland Rockers situation, for example, where the team is great for a bit, but then either the ownership isn't really fully invested in it after a while. So I want to make sure that these clubs remain stable and that they're going to be here for the long haul as more time goes on. But again, folks, the NWSL is going to be going back to Utah with the Royals, returning after a 4-year hiatus when the club was actually acquired by the league and sent the way of Kansas City to become the KC Current. And speaking of which, they're building a very marvelous brand new plush estate for the Current down in Kansas City pretty soon. Just a quick refresher, but RSL got to keep the rights to the team name and branding with the ability to bring the team back either in 2023 or in 2024 for a predetermined fee between $2 and $5 million. And again, we'll see how things go in the market here today with MLS. At this point in time, folks, we'll move things over into some Olympic updates here. And per Front Office Sports, there is talk right now of the Olympic Games going back to Korea for 2036. But per front office sports sources today, Seoul is planning to bid for the Olympics once again, but this time without the North Korean capital being involved this time around. The pair submitted a proposal to host the 2032 Olympics in 2021, 3 years after the countries marched under a unified flag at the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics in 2018 before it was awarded to Brisbane, Australia, in hopes of better relations with North Korea, per Reuters. But now Seoul, South Korea, is making a bid for the 2036 Summer Olympics, according to Seoul's mayor, Oh Si-hoon. Did say, per a translator, that I think the strategy for 2032 was doomed to failure because of the unpredictable inter-Korean relations. In the last year, North Korea has tested a record number of ballistic missiles and regularly threatens Seoul and their allies. Right now, Washington, D.C. officials have said that North Korea may be prepping to test nuclear weapons again for the first time since 2017. Seoul is reportedly open to holding some events in the DMZ or in Pyongyang if relations do in fact improve. The national government and individual cities would have to decide whether to jointly host with Pyongyang, according to an official with the Korean Sport and Olympic Committee, who said they had not yet received any formal statements of intent to bid from Seoul or from Busan. Germany, Qatar, India, Egypt, and Mexico have also been named as potential bidders for the 2036 Olympic Games. Want to quickly get to the comments. We had some comments pouring here at this rate. My good man, David Frecker, the lead guy in charge of San Diego Sports Domination, saying, gonna rewatch later, but hello from Strike Force Training Camp as indoor football gets underway coming up next Sunday here in San Diego on the 2 weeks, I should say, on the 26th against the Quad City Steamrollers. My good man, Hank Taylor, joining us down, I believe, in Florida, if I'm right or wrong there, Mr. Taylor. Good to see you as always, saying great stuff. And Sean Pebbles actually agreed. I was just about to reference the Rockers again. Going back to my previous story, though, with what Sean had said, though, again, I don't want to see a league like the NWSL, which I think has been really, hitting their stride here going into the upcoming season. I would just hate, Sean, to again kind of see what happened with the WNBA. And I think Jamie Coffey, one of our fellow PA announcer family members, would even agree, though. She had done the Monarchs for a long time in Sacramento. And that was a club that when they folded, like, a part of me died, because they were always, great. Carol Lawson and Ticha Penicheiro, their championship in 2009, and how that team folding really, I think, maybe turned some, people off, though. But how I just don't want to see a repeat, Sean, as you and I talked about, or what we had just referenced here, with the Rockers, for example. Penny Taylor played there for a long time. Great uniforms, great, fan base. The Gunn family, I think, did a great job with both the Cavs and the Rockers at the time, though. But I would just hate to see a league that seems to be hitting their stride, though, like the NWSL, expand too quickly, probably a bunch of markets for exuberant, expansion fees. And then by 5 years, that market is gone goodbye because the fans didn't show up, the team wasn't good, or ownership, just said, it was good for a bit. It was a tax write-off. We're done, and we're not going to be doing this again. And also another Sean, my man Sean Mears, a fellow announcer, says, hello, Callan, from beautiful Richmond, Virginia. Hopefully, Sean, you're having a great Monday, my man. And thanks for dropping by here on this wonderful Monday, wherever you folks may be joining us from here today. With this, but folks, getting back on track here, though, the Olympics, I will say I did put my hat into the ring for the 2028 Olympics to help out with media relations for the LA Games. It just seems to be so outrageously ridiculous that we have bids already being thrown around like manhole covers for Olympic Games coming up 10, 15, 20 years down the road. And folks, I have always said, and you probably would agree with me, though, if you are going to bid for the Olympic Games, you better damn well have every venue ready to go. Because I don't think we want to keep seeing reruns of Rio de Janeiro in 2016, where after the games are over, the facilities go and rot, and they become something out of a, Fallout video game. The one thing I've always said about the Summer Olympics or the Winter Olympics, You have to go to countries or go to markets that already have the infrastructure in place to make the games go off without a hitch. Now, and also, folks, I just think, though, it's way too far fetched and way too early, I think, to worry about 2036. Let's get through 2024, 2026, 2028 first and foremost with the upcoming 3 Olympics. But also, I do think Korean relations I think, have a lot of weight in this case with Seoul bidding. Because I can speak from experience having my dad, who has been coaching baseball for nearly 40 years. Every August, they go and play in a World Baseball Classic tournament similar to the WBC for high school kids and for 8th graders and for kids who are between 14, 15, and 16 years old. They did go and play in Seoul, South Korea in 2018, I believe. And that I remember best was when they were flying home, I believe, and there was a threat issued against the South from the North, and the airport shut down for a few hours because of the concern that it was an actual threat when nothing happened. That is my main concern. As much as we had concerns about the World Cup being held in Qatar, that I believe has to have some weight. And it's a crying shame, folks, that every time the Olympic Games are held, there's always some sort of tension in the air brewing, with international affairs. And it sucks, though, that on a stage, though, like the World Cup or even the Olympics, that international tensions are usually what feels like being at an all-time high. Now, folks, I can't speak like for many of you out there who grew up during the Cold War, during the Munich Massacre of 72, or the 80 Olympic Games in Lake Placid. I can't speak from that experience, though, about growing up and the boycott of Moscow because of the hostage crisis in Iran, or because of what happened in Germany in Munich in 72 with the terrorist attack that it took place against the Jewish athletes. I can't speak from my experience, but I can, think about how I always have enjoyed the Olympic Games because they bring the world together. And it's about, competition and establishing international goodwill. That's how I felt when I played for this particular team I told you about, when we would go and play in Japan or Italy or Mexico or Australia. Is, we were all, we were all kids playing a kid's game. And it was about learning new cultures. It was learning their culture. It was, establishing friendships and international goodwill. And for God's sakes, I still talk to friends of mine who I played against in 2009 from Italy, who are from Australia or from Japan, and things like that. And it's more about the culture as one thing. But I don't know, though, if we should. I mean, this may sound stupid, folks. I'm sorry if it does. But is it worth the risk of putting the games, again, 13 years from now in South Korea, kind of knowing that you never know what may in fact transpire? Now, I thought it was really awesome and really cool that we saw both Koreas march together and play as a unified country in the 2018 Olympic Games that were held in South Korea. And I thought about that long and hard, folks, about how sports bring people together and how it can unite a country for a few weeks out of the year, where people can put aside their differences about whatever the topic is, and they can all unite as one dignified country for 3 weeks, 5 weeks, or a month. In our case, with the World Baseball Classic, is that we're all rooting for our particular countries to win the tournament. But aside from what's been brewing right now with international tension, international relations, and all that other, minutia, I mainly wonder about, do you have the facilities in place to actually make this worth our while? Because if this is going to be a thing, folks, of temporary ordeals or temporary things, like, for example, the Qatar World Cup, then I'm not going to be on board for it. I really think that if you do not have stadiums in place, if you don't have the required venues required, then you don't deserve to host the Olympic Games. I don't care if it's temporary. I think it has to be an actual stadium because I believe, folks, if you recall, I believe it was over Halloween. There was an issue, I believe, in Korea of people who were trampled during a concert event over Halloween due to the facility collapsing. I don't want this to happen during the Olympic Games. That's why I think it's been great that the IOC has picked places like Los Angeles, California, Paris, France, and Italy because they have the facilities already ready. I mean, my goodness, I think I already saw that LA already has all the venues labeled and already picked out for the events. Now, yes, there are a few temporary spots though, but at least nothing else has to be built. I believe the swimming event's going to be held at USC's baseball stadium, for heaven's sakes. At least that place already exists. Let's not break out tables and duct tape and, nuts and bolts and build something that's only going to be standing for a couple of weeks and tear them all down. I think Sean Mears is absolutely right here. They will construct something, but then they won't use it afterwards. It's going to be just like Rio de Janeiro again in 2016. That's what I don't want to see happen. Find some way to utilize the stadiums after the games come. I think, folks, in Salt Lake City, I want to say, they converted the one long jump event for skiing, I believe. That is now a water park every summer. You can literally belly flop and slide down that ramp from the O2 Olympic Games, fly through the air, and smash your sternum into the water during the summer in Salt Lake City because they reused that particular facility from 2002's Winter Games in Salt Lake City, Utah. Find some means and some way to reuse your products. We're not going to go down this Qatar path again and build temporary structures. And I think, Sean, and I think going back to Sean's point, though, about it could be another Rio. Sean, what about what happened with the World Cup in Brazil? How, construction never got finished on some of the venues and people were sitting on concrete slabs where there were supposed to be seats because construction stopped and there was like a labor strike. And I think even then, those structures have gone down the drain since the World Cup was held in Brazil. So I think Sean is onto a great point. And that's what I mainly want to see, though. If you're going to bid for the Olympic Games, have your venues ready to go. Don't wait until a year or 2, 3 years. Get them done or have them ready, or don't bother sticking your nose into doing the Olympic Games if you're not going to be, putting forth the manpower to actually get these facilities built and ready to go. Let's not have repeats of Rio or the Brazil World Cup from, I believe, 2011 or 2012 or 2014. Because it doesn't look good on television, and sadly, it embarrasses your country, if you ask me. If you're using temporary structures made from shipping containers, duct tape and masking tape, nuts and bolts are hanging out, what have you, figure it out, get it right. But again, folks, sold to bid for the 2036 Olympics, but they are, though, going to be excluding, North Korea, it does sound like, from the games, or at least from hosting again. They did, in fact, as we remember very well, they did, in fact, co-host, or at least they marched under a neutral flag during the 2036 or the 2018 Winter Olympic Games in Pyeongchang, South Korea. But again, with the rise of international tension, the rise of internal affairs and strife going on, who knows what, in fact, may happen come 2036. But right now, Seoul, Korea, now throwing their hat into the ring for the 2036 Winter Olympics at this rate. Sean Mears also writes real quick, lodging the athletes is also cumbersome for even the experienced cities. First-timers have it rough. And I think, Sean, mercifully, for the games in Los Angeles, my man, I believe the student dormitories at UCLA will be the home for the athletes when they come to LA in 2028. And I believe the media will be staying at USC. So at least they have that in place. right now. But that's also one thing as well, though, Sean, having interviewed Haley Skamura from the USA Women's National Hockey Team last year. And Haley played in the Olympic Games for Team USA this past year in Japan, I believe, or in China, and seeing pictures of her and their teammates at breakfast, for example. They still had plexiglass in between them. They had to only use like the robots would come through and take their orders. They had to wear masks all the time and whatnot. So lodging is one thing, but obviously I think it'll be a lot better when in fact things come around though for 2028. With that, folks, our final story for today's program, of course, it's the best time of the year if you ask me, folks. March Madness is here, and the field of 68 teams has been set, and now casual and hardcore bettors alike can turn their attention toward March Madness, where they'll be part of a massive contingent wagering on the upcoming tournament. A new survey done by the American Gaming Associated, the AGA, finds that 68 million American adults, roughly a quarter of that population, plan to bet a total of nearly $15.5 billion on this year's men's basketball tournament. Within that figure, nearly 56.3 million will enter a bracket contest. 21.5 million plan to bet casually with their friends, and 31 million plan to place a bet traditionally online at a sports book or with a bookie. The expanded access to legal betting, including most recently in Massachusetts, is leading to more novice bettors. 3/4 of surveyed online bettors say this will be their first time betting on March Madness online. The bettors surveyed are also keying in on certain teams to win the national title. For example, 9% are going for Kentucky, while 8% have Texas A&M, 6% have Bama, Gonzaga, or UCLA. Given that March Madness is a multi-week event, it should be no surprise that they are projected to be more bettors for this one than this year's Super Bowl. However, the magnitude of the big game brings out the big bettors, as the Super Bowl was projected for $500 million more in handling than the basketball tournament at $16 billion. Folks, you probably know very well I'm not very big into football. So this is essentially like my college football playoff season. I have made brackets for my entire life, basically. I've never put money down on them, but I have done, plenty of, brackets with friends or with teachers, for example. We did some brackets when I was in school and with some of my friends and now with coworkers. This is one of my favorite times of the year now because, I think that we all, will chip in $5, $10 to an office pool, maybe, with some friends, maybe. But now this is where things get fun, though, because now we're all filling out brackets, whether we are astute or, very big college basketball fans like myself, or maybe if you're like a casual viewer of the game and you just want to have some fun with it. That's why I always do like 2 to 4 brackets every year because I like having fun. I have my main bracket that I'm serious about. Then I even have, you have your serious bracket. In my case, I have my serious bracket. Then I have my other serious bracket. Then I have like ones where I pick teams based off their mascots. I've told my man Alex McKean over at USD, I usually pick my schedule 9 times out of 10 for college athletics, folks, based on mascots 9 times out of 10 during this time of the year, though, because I just like, cool mascot names. And then I do another one just to have, basically. But folks, I see, though, the impact about March Madness. I for one, sadly, not been able to go to see a game yet in person because usually I'm working when March Madness rolls around. And if it's in San Diego, it's always at Viejas Arena, and usually I'm working that day or whatnot. But I believe, though, that for bettors for March Madness, and I told this to Alex and a few coworkers too recently at a USD softball game, and even for that matter, a couple friends at a hockey game recently. This might be the most unpredictable field we have seen in March Madness, at least in my 28, 29 years, on this planet, and probably my 15, 20 years watching sports, though. This might be the most unpredictable year in men's college basketball. Because in my opinion, folks, there has not been a clear-cut number one this season because number one has lost, I think, probably more times than I can count in one season Bama, Houston, Gonzaga, UCLA, Georgia, what have you. So I think, folks, this is going to be a big year for the wagering side because of the unpredictability of what this tournament will pose. Now, we know, of course, folks, that March Madness is so unpredictable. But for a year, though, like this, where you've not had a clear-cut number one favorite, that's gone wall to wall as number one all season. And, it's not Kansas or UNC or Duke, though, but it's like Purdue in Indiana, or Purdue, Indiana, North Carolina, Alabama, Houston, schools like that, though, UCLA even. This might be a big year to probably cash in or try to cash in on putting some money down because of the unpredictability. Now, I haven't filled out my bracket. I haven't even seen the full bracket yet because I was, out and about yesterday on Sunday yesterday, celebrating, a very cool, personal milestone for myself yesterday. So I haven't seen the full bracket yet, but I'm eager though to begin filling it out though when I wrap up here in about 9 minutes though, and just kind of see though where I go, because I like the uncertainty, because it really, I think, shows, though, that there is now beginning to be parity in men's college basketball. Now, I can't say the same for college football, folks, because, we all know about the SEC in college football. We all know about, it's Bama and Georgia and two other teams usually. Now, it's probably unfair for me. Again, I know, folks, I'm usually on my soapbox about how much I'm not a big fan of football, the NFL or college or what have you. And that's just how I am, sadly. I know it may be weird that I work in sports, but I'm not really big into football. I'm not. And I've been this way for a long time before. And then after the Chargers left San Diego, I just had a big resentment towards football. But I know it's probably unfair to compare a 4-team tournament to a 68-team tournament. But that's kind of where I think makes March Madness more intriguing. Again, this is not my bias or my anti-football stances, folks. But I just like the unpredictability, because I think sometimes, though, when you have such a small group, again, 4 teams, soon to be 12, I believe, in a year or two, to 68 teams, though, is that I think that the unpredictability is bigger, obviously, bigger bracket, more chances for upsets, maybe more than the 4-team, 8-team, 10-team, 12-team tournament. But at least, though, with the money side of things, though, $15.5 billion planning to be bet or wagered upon for the tournament this year is really, I think, no surprise. But I think it's mainly more of a thing because of the uncertainty that we're now in right now. Or not really uncertainty, but because it's the uncertainty about how the bracket may in fact work, because we've not had that number one team going wire to wire as the overall number one all season. Now, could it be a year, though, where there's going to be all 4 number ones make it or whatnot? I don't think so this season. But it's going to be fun, though, to see how this tournament pans out this year. And folks, I so look forward, though, to waking up on Thursday and watching the whole buffet of games on Thursday and Friday, because I love the wall-to-wall action. I love being able to go from CBS to True to TNT and then to USA or what other networks going to be showing games, or CNBC, because this is my favorite time of the year, because now we're going to have wall-to-wall basketball across the board. And I remember last year, me and my friend Matt Lehman went out to a bar for St. Patty's Day, and I told him, I said, hey, I know we're celebrating St. Patty's Day, man, but I need to watch the basketball tournament because, this is my college football playoff, because he's a big Alabama football fan. So he knew I was going to be watching a lot of the games, though, but we were still, drinking and having a good time and doing it so responsibly. But this is one of my favorite times of the year, other than when baseball starts and hockey season starts, is when March Madness rolls around, because you're always ready for that first game to start, though. Then you're ready for the Cinderella teams to come to fruition, the upsets, your bracket being busted one way or another. So I think though, folks, this is going to be a very big year, I think, though. And hopefully, if you're going to be out there betting, do so please responsibly, as a friendly reminder. But I'm more, though, more excited, though, because this probably could be one of the best tournaments of all time, in my opinion, because you don't know what's going to happen. And I know we say that we probably say that every year about March Madness, but you just don't know what may happen this year because of the of how loony and how crazy of a year it's been for March Madness this season. And I think that Sean is absolutely says I can't get Sweet 16 without suffering some terrible losses. I mean, there was one, I think it was Gonzaga losing last year, Sean. It absolutely crushed my bracket last year because they got beat like in the second round, I think, or third round last year. So it's a love-hate relationship with March Madness. You love it because you're invested. You want to see your bracket do well, though. Then you get a loss like that, and then it's like you hate everything. You want to throw your phone, punch the TV, throw a temper tantrum and whatnot because you're so invested into the product because you want to see your bracket do well, though. Then when you lose, though, it's like your own team losing that big game, though, and then that sort of stuff comes to fruition. But again, folks, a projected total of nearly $15.5 billion could be wagered for the upcoming March Madness tournament. Wanting to say hello as well to my good man Tecmo Full Nelson, my good man Troy, saying what is up. Troy, good to see you as always, and again, thank you so much for your support and whatnot here today. We had a great audience today here, folks. So good to see everybody here on this edition of Press Row. Again, talking more things in regards to sports media, sports broadcasting, game operations, all things with stat work and other outside things. And we're not talking actual sports stories here again, more so talking about the business and media side of the industry here on Press Row. But again, folks, a lot of great talk here today for the program. We'll see if we can sneak one more story in before we cut out of here for the day. We will, though, folks, rejoin you on Wednesday back here at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon here today, or here coming up on Wednesday this week. Here, we're trying our best to at least do 1 or 2 shows a week here, sometime in the early afternoon here on the West Coast here to kind of keep things going and more so be able to appease or at least be a part or at least help out the folks joining us in the Midwest or East Coast here to be able to join you folks here today and whatnot. And again, give you something a little bit different than maybe you're used to here on Intergalactic Sports and Entertainment. Again, we're more so streaming here via YouTube, Facebook, and also via Twitch as well here today. So we thank you all for joining us. But again, folks, we will rejoin you back here again on Wednesday afternoon, back here at around 1 o'clock local time, Pacific time here from San Diego. Again, we'll do our absolute best to bring you more and more great commentary and great stories, hopefully, again, courtesy of both Front Office Sports and AwfulAnnouncing.com here. As again, we're talking sports announcing, sports broadcasting, game operations, stat work, and other big stories involving sports. But again, away, though, from wins and losses and stories away from on-field matters and stuff of that caliber. But with that, folks, we will sign off here for the day. We thank you all again for joining us. Wanting to shout out some viewers today. Nate Miller, Sean Mears, Dave Esparza, Catherine Fisher, Mike Hughes, and Christian J. Ilton. Along with Brandon Herrera, Sean Pebbles, David Frecker, and Hank Taylor, and also Ryan Pond, and our good man, Troy, who also says San Diego, which is German. Never mind. Dropping an Anchorman reference here as we cut out of here for the afternoon. But again, folks, thank you all again for joining us here. Again, this is a brand new experiment we're trying here on Intergalactic Sports and Entertainment, doing our best to talk again about the media and business side, though, of the sports world, again, away from wins and losses and away from other, or just away from the regular sports stories, folks. Again, diving into the announcing side, diving into the business side, league operations, game operations, good stuff like that. We're still trying to find out if, in fact, we'll be able to get our good man Chris Davis to join us here sometime in the future. Again, we're doing our best to just try all this out here and get back on the podcast grind here. And again, Troy also says, appreciate you doing this as well. And Troy, just for that matter, we're trying our best to get some of our PA brethren on as well. Again, as we get more shows under our belt, though, to be able to bring some guests on as well to share their stories and great stories and good content like that as well. But with that, folks, we bid you a pleasant rest of your Monday. We'll see you back here again Wednesday afternoon, back here on the Intergalactic Sports Entertainment Network, folks. Till next time, this has been Press Row. We'll see you back here on Wednesday, folks. Till then, good day